And that's where I want to talk about the tight end position, because the biggest question facing BYU's tight end group is, what is the health status of Isaac Rex? If you heard him speak at Media Day, you also heard Steve Clark, the tight ends coach, who we played an interview, I believe, on this podcast while I was in California a couple weeks back. Apparently, it's just all about making sure that Isaac Rex feels like he can play at 100%. It's all of a comfort thing for him, making sure he's got confidence in that ankle. Any of you who watched that USC game when he went up and caught that pass and he came down and cleat kind of caught, it looked like, and then his ankle turns over. Well, and I've been talking about this, he actually had 2 separate surgeries to fix all of the damage. It was not a pretty injury by any means. The good news is that it appears he is on his way back. Do I expect him to be out there day one of training camp running around like nothing ever happened? No, I don't, honestly. And if I'm BYU's coaching staff, easing him back in. The goal is to have him available for the majority, if not all, of the season. Training camp for him doesn't matter at this juncture. He has had enough reps in BYU's offense. You know what he is. He's a bona fide star for the BYU football program. You don't need to worry about him being out there day one of training camp. If he is cleared and he feels like he's ready to go, great, toss him out there. But make sure the imperative goal for him at the tight end position for BYU is to make sure that he feels 100% going into that USF game, and then he can play a full season. He is, I said, a bona fide star for BYU's offense. He had a breakout season in 2020. We all know that. 37 receptions, 429 yards, those 12 touchdowns. Took a little bit of a downward turn last year as the wide receiver position took a lot of reps. It felt like away from a lot of receptions. Finished the year with 18 receptions for 191 yards and 3 touchdowns. I am of the opinion, if he is fully healthy, he could have a monster season this year. There's not as many proven wide receivers on BYU's roster. Of course, you got guys like Puka Nacua as well as Gunnar Romney there, but the guys behind them, outside of really Keanu Hill, who is a proven guy at the wide receiver position, that's where a guy like Isaac Rex can step in. If Isaac Rex is slowed at all, if he has any health concerns whatsoever, the good news is you got Dallin Hulker right there behind him. He had another good season last year, 14 receptions, 200 yards. His first season back off of a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Had 1 touchdown. Funny enough, his numbers almost matched what he had in 2018 as a true freshman, 19 receptions for 235 yards, and also 1 touchdown that year. The biggest thing for Dallin Hulker is he is more than capable of contributing in seemingly every facet of BYU's passing game. He is just a true athlete. The funny thing about this is he is, I think, going to be even better in terms of his overall physical readiness for this season, because he's finally had a full offseason of training, hitting the weight room, all that stuff. He also recently got married, so congratulations to him on that. Isaac Rex, actually, funny enough, was slated to get married the week after that USC game. He also got married later on in the offseason. So congratulations to both of them on the nuptials, and now it's time to turn their attention to the football season upcoming. I believe both of them are NFL caliber tight ends. Isaac Rex, in my opinion, could leave as soon as after this season if everything goes according to plan. A guy like Dallin Hulker is probably going to have to prove maybe at least 1 or 2 more years before I feel like he can take the jump. But the good news is both of them have NFL talent and NFL skill sets. 6'5" in the case of Dallin Hulker, 6'6" in the case of Isaac Rex. Isaac is listed at 250 pounds. I'd be stunned if he's not playing at more 260 pounds, and he carries it extremely well. Dallin Hulker's a little slimmer. Last year was listed at 225 pounds. I would imagine when the new roster comes out, I'm looking at this right here, they have him listed at 6'5", 235. So they say he's gained 10 pounds. So the good news is you got 2 really good tight ends at as your starters for BYU. The funny thing about this is you have got, in my opinion, as many as 5 guys who would have a say in different BYU years to be a starting caliber tight end for the Cougars. I'm speaking of Lane Lunt, played in 12 games a year ago, mainly on special teams, 6'4", 235 pounds, a former junior college transfer to the BYU football program. Lane Lunt has just really not had an opportunity to show what he can do. He's a talented player, as is a guy like Carter Weed. He appeared in 5 games last year, has had injury concerns his entire career at BYU. But when Carter's on the field at 6'4", 236 pounds, He's as good as any tight end BYU's had in the last 15 years. And I mean that. There is so much talent with this tight end position. The problem is getting them reps, getting them opportunities to be on the field. And I haven't even mentioned the fifth guy in this conversation, and that is Ethan Erickson. I have heard nothing but rave reviews for the redshirt freshman out of Kahuku High School. He's from Hawaii, played on the scout team a year ago, coming home off of a mission. I have heard nothing but praise, hype, all kinds of stuff for Ethan Erickson. And so who knows? Do you get to see him on the field this year? I can't even begin to try and project and predict that, because the thing about this is the traditional tight end position for BYU. They have put as many as 2 and 3 guys on the field, but when you're 5 deep, what do? You got wide receivers over there. You got running backs here. We need to talk about Masen Wake, who is part of the tight end position, but more of a fullback / H-back. The problem is getting these guys the reps, the opportunities, the touches requisite to really let them show their skill sets. It's almost an embarrassing amount of riches for a guy like Steve Clark as their position coach, also for offensive coordinator Aaron Roderick. There's just a glut of talent at tight end. I guess the downside of it is some of these guys may never, in some certain circumstances, get the opportunity to truly show what they can possibly do on the football field, just because they're good, but there's 1, 2, or maybe even 3 guys who are just a cut above them. Man, it's a catch-22 in so many ways, and you feel bad for guys on this roster who may not get those looks, because outside, we'll talk about Masen Wake here in a minute, because I think he's a true X factor, because he's a little bit different player. But behind those 5 tight ends I already mentioned, you also have Anthony Olson, who is a freshman coming into the program as a preferred walk-on, I believe from Olympus High School. And Anthony Olson is a former basketball star who's making the transition to football. Had originally committed to Utah, and everything said he was a Utah guy. Then he opts to pick BYU. I have heard that Anthony Olson has just got otherworldly athleticism for the position. If he can kind of master his craft, hone his craft, he could be a starting caliber tight end. You also have a guy like Samisoni Peawa. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Prepped at Alta High School. He's a true freshman coming in, a little bit shorter, 6'3", 225 pounds, but he's probably sitting there, well, I'm probably looking at a red shirt this year. That there's just so many guys on this roster at the tight end position. When you play 3 guys at the very most, and that's in kind of a rare circumstance, it just seems like inevitably, I feel like, and we already had this past offseason, you have Bentley Hanshaw, who was actually a fairly talented player in his own right. He decided to transfer, ultimately transferred to Liberty, and he will actually face BYU as part of the Liberty football program in late October is when BYU goes back there to Lynchburg. But it's just so many tight ends on this position. Now, a word on Masen Wake. They list him at the tight end position, as do they list Houston Heimuli. Both of them are more of traditional fullback types. Houston Heimuli, 5'11", 265 pounds, a grad transfer from from Stanford University. And then you have Masen Wake, the former walk-on from Lone Peak High School, who I have dubbed Air Wake. He is a guy who is just absolutely incredible. His skill set is so multifaceted that you can play him in so many different ways. The funny thing about this is, if BYU, let's just say all hell breaks loose with regards to their running back position, and you had just a spate of injuries, and you needed somebody to play running back, I put Masen Wake in there, no problem, no questions asked. I think he's capable of doing that. He proved in the USC game, with the injuries mounting in that game, he was actually able to step in and play the traditional tight end spot for BYU. The coaches didn't know this. They had hardly probably even put him in that spot, but he goes in, shows that he can play that position. He's a little bit shorter, 6'1", 250 pounds, built more like just a Mack truck of a human being. But I absolutely love the versatility of a guy like Masen Wake, and I think Houston Heimuli is going to show that he's got some versatility in his own right. The nice part is, if you're a guy like Aaron Roderick as BYU's offensive coordinator, is you can deploy all of these assets in so many different ways. And trust me when I say this, Aaron Roderick, he is always scheming new ways to attack defenses with guys he's got. They love Masen Wake at BYU. He is just a program guy. He has sacrificed everything for the program, and I absolutely enjoy every opportunity I get to speak with him, because he is just a guy who's got a great perspective on what his role is with this football program and what he is capable of doing. I think Masen Wake will get an opportunity at the NFL level. Do I know what position it'll be at? I have no clue. Honestly, I got no clue, but I do think there will be an NFL team who looks at his versatility and says, you know what? He is just simply put, a football player, and we can do something with that. I hope that truly does happen and he gets his opportunity. The good news is, in a case like Masen Wake, he is still just a junior. So he has still got some time on his side to continue to hone his craft, kind of round his game, and add 2 or 3 more tools to it. I really like this tight end position. Will they see the monster statistics? Will Dallin Hulker go for 500 yards while a guy, let's say you have Isaac Rex back for 100%? Does he go for 1,000 yards? I highly doubt it. The crazy thing about this is we know that NFL teams are already aware of these players, and they are truly aware of what each of these guys can do. Film doesn't lie. You don't necessarily have to have the gaudy statistics for an NFL team to be like, all right, that's the guy we're going to take. They will watch the film. They'll see what you do without the ball, in addition to the opportunities when you do have the ball thrown your way. And they evaluate that across multiple levels. They will evaluate your body language. They'll evaluate how you interact with your teammates. There's so much more than just the statistics in the day and age of going to the NFL. So I don't know if I could be any more high on position group at BYU. Maybe the offensive line. And we still haven't talked about the offensive line. I truly think BYU's offensive line is elite this year. Crazy enough, though, that tight end position, a lot of people aren't talking about it, and it might be near the same level as BYU's offensive line in terms of the overall depth, talent, and the opportunity they have staring them in the face. Only time will tell to see how they ultimately are deployed on the field and if they get the statistics, a guy like Isaac Rex. But biggest thing is, if Isaac Rex is not 100% in training camp or maybe the first couple of games of the season, you put Dallin Hulker in there, and I don't feel like you're going to miss a beat. And the good news is the depth behind that is also more than capable of stepping in. So very, very good things. If you're a BYU fan and you're looking at a tight end position, there is just a glut of talent. But who's to say that coming up this next offseason, some of these guys could say, you know what, I just don't see a way to playing time, and they transfer. That's kind of the risk you run. I guess that's kind of the antithesis of having all of this talent, is guys ultimately getting just like, I just don't see a way for me to play, and they ultimately jump ship. So it's never going to be a perfect situation for everybody out there. We fully understand. I think anybody watching this or listening to this podcast knows that you can't ever have a perfect scenario in anything. But the good news is, for BYU going into this season, there's a bevy of talent at the tight end position. Now, let's let them go out there, make plays, and just make life miserable for BYU's opponents.